Okay, that clock on the wall says 7 o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and start the Tooele City Planning Commission for Wednesday, February 26, 2025. Thank you for being with us this evening. First thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is our roll call. Commissioner Hammer.
Here.
Commissioner Proctor.
Here.
Commissioner Sloan.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Jensen.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
I'm Commissioner Robinson. I too am here. We recognize our alternate commissioners Dunn and Gossett, as well as from the city, Mr. Baker, Mr. Agard, Mr. Page, council members Manzione and Hanson, and Ms. Fairborn taking notes for us in the back. Next on the agenda, public hearing and recommendation on a zoning map amendment request by Brandon and Jenny Nay to reassign zoning for approximately 19 acres located at 1405 North Conifer Street to the R1 to 10 residential zoning district. Mr. Page.
Thank you, Chair. You probably remember last Planning Commission meeting, there was a proposal to change this from RR5 to RR1. And since then, the applicants have wanted to amend their rezone petition from RR5 to R110. And again, this is on Conifer Street, about 19.3 acres. Here's an aerial view of the property. It's kind of the northeast portion of Tooele City. This is the current land use that calls for this area to be medium density residential, which is the R17, the R18, and the R110 zones are considered medium density residential. And here's the current zoning of the area, showing it's RR5 and around it is county property and R18. And then this is a visual of the proposed zoning to R110. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to address those at this time. There are obviously some differences in lot sizes, but also the usage between the RR5 and the R110, primarily, animal rights. So that would be an issue or a question to be resolved.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Any questions for staff from the commission? Okay, if not, this item does require a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. If there's anyone from the public that wants to come forward, now is the time to do so. And as far as the applicants, if you'll wait till after we close the public hearing, then we talk to you about things. Anyone from the public want to come forward and address it, please come forward. And there should be a place to put your name and information there at the rostrum, if you don't mind doing that.
My question is more procedural, I guess, first of all.
Could I get your name, please, just
Jill, oh, sorry.
so you
Jill
could put it, if you don't mind talking into the mic. Sorry, I know
okay.
I'm kind of being picky, but
It's
that way
okay.
everything gets recorded and gets done correctly.
Jill Johnston.
Okay?
Was it required to go from the RR 5 acres to the 1 acre before we could get to the 10,000 square feet? Or could they have gone from 5 acres to 10,000 square feet?
We're going to let Mr. Page answer that, if you don't mind, Ms. Johnston.
Good question. I should have explained that earlier. So the city requires that a rezone needs to be adherence to the general plan's land use. So the general plan calls for this to be medium density residential, and the requested rezone to RR1 was not in compliance with the medium density residential. So that's why the applicant has chosen to go right to the R110, so it be in compliance with the zone, the general plan's land use.
Okay, but they didn't go directly to the R10, RR10 or whatever, the 10,000 square feet. They went from 5 acres to 1 acre to 10,000 square feet.
It has not, the current zoning is RR5. It's not R1.
The R1 was not approved or changed or anything. That was just the petition.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would have been part of my problem. Because I didn't understand it, I just felt kind of misled that it was going from 5 to 1 to 10,000, right? Because then are we going to be back here in 2 more weeks to make it even less, or multifamily, or, apartment complexes or something like that?
So like Mr. Page said, the zoning needs to match the land use map. The land use map would not be matched by the R1. So rather than change the land use map, they're seeking to change the zoning to R1 to 10. It's not going to change to multifamily or or medium density or anything else, because it has to match that land use map. Commissioner Sloan.
Just so that we're clear too, these things are applicant driven. We're not deciding what they can do, what they can't.
Yeah.
Mr. Page mentioned the code, and we've got to stay within that parameter. But it's not us as a group saying, okay, you've got to go from 5 to 1 to 10,000, and next week we're going to put apartments on it. This is applicant driven. So I understand what you're asking. I want to make sure.
The problem is I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a commissioner, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, none of it makes sense to me.
Our commission doesn't do that. We receive applications. The landowners are making application to make a change, whatever that change may be.
I guess I was just confused because I guess I didn't really understand that the last thing wasn't approved. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Anyone else want to come forward and address this item? If not, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. Does any member of the commission have questions for the applicant? If not, I do. Can I have you come up, Mr. Nay? My question is, why R1 to 10 and not R1 to 8 that matches everything else around it?
Just because that was in the general plan, and I went as big as possible, because our original intent was to do the RR1. The biggest one that matched the general plan was the R110.
Okay.
So that's why.
Okay. That makes sense. Thanks. Any other questions for the applicant while he's standing here?
So originally, it looked like you were planning on putting a house on a 3-acre lot.
That's still the plan.
So what happens to the other 16 acres? Why are we even bothering with that 16 acres?
Well, when I came in and met with Paul Hansen and Jared at the time, when he was in this position, they said if they wanted to join, they could join me in the rezone. And so I asked the other two landowners if they wanted to join, and they said they wanted to. I don't think they have any intention at this point to do anything with it, but they just joined to change the zoning, because that was what Paul Hansen actually kind of suggested. My intent is just to buy that one piece from Joe, the 3.64 acres.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Nay? Thank you for answering those. Okay, bring that back to the commission for any further discussion, comments, or I'll entertain a motion if anyone's ready to make one.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, if I could. I'm actually happier with this change in the zoning than I was with the original application. This matches the character of the area much closer. And just off to the left-hand side of the map, you've got a street that the whole south end of it, up to 1,000 North, is 10,000-foot lots. So it's a little closer to the character of the neighborhood than it would have been then.
Thank you, Commissioner Sloan.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Jensen, please.
I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Conifer rezone zoning map amendment requested by Brandon and Jenny Nay, reassigning the zoning of approximately 19.38 acres to the R110 residential zoning district. Application number 2025-010, based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated February 19th, 2025.
Some motion for positive recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Proctor. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. Commissioner Hammer.
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
The chair also votes aye. That moves forward with a positive recommendation, 7-0. Next on the agenda, a public hearing and decision on a conditional use permit request by Ariane Sanders representing the PM Design Group for an accessory drive-through facility to occur approximately 2425 North Main Street. Mr. Page.
Thank you. This is on a pad in the future Smith's Marketplace area. It's right on the southeast corner of their property, or the northwest corner of 2400 North and Main Street. This is for a drive-through facility for a bank. This shows the current zoning of general commercial on this property and surrounding the property. And here is a site plan showing pad F and its drive-through with kind of the access areas off of 2400 North. So again, we're just looking at the drive-through for this conditional use permit application. So that's the presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to address those at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Any questions, concerns, comments for staff on this conditional use permit? If not, this does require a public hearing. We will open up the public hearing. If there's anyone that wants to come forward and address this drive-through facility, now is your chance. And seeing no rush, we will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission if there's any questions, concerns, comments, or I will entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Proctor.
I move we approve the conditional use permit request by Ariane Sanders representing the PM Design Group Incorporated to authorize the use of accessory drive-through facility to occur at 2425 North Main Street, application number 2025-020, based on the findings and subject to conditions listed in the staff report dated February 19th, 2025.
Motion to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll second.
Commissioner Hammer will second that. Any discussion on that motion? If not, we'll take it to a vote. Commissioner Hammer.
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
The chair also votes aye. That conditional use permit is approved, 7-0. Next, a decision on a site plan design review request by David Lewis IV, representing D.R. Horton, to approve construction phase 2C of the Western Acres development. Mr. Page.
Chair, the Planning Commission makes the decision on approving site plans under our code. This is the Western Acres Phase 2C. It's approximately 5.8 acres and 44 townhomes. The location is approximately 2000 North Copper Canyon Road. The current zoning is MR16 PUD zoning district. Here's an aerial view showing the Phase 2C along with the surrounding properties. It's located primarily off of Pine Canyon Road. This is the current zoning of the MR16, and then immediately adjacent to the west is general commercial. And here is a site plan of the 2C. And this is kind of the overall site plan for Western Acres, showing kind of in the middle of the development, the Phase 2C. And this is the landscape plan for this phase. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to address those at this time.
Any questions, concerns from the commission for staff on this item? If not, I will entertain a motion on this site plan design review. This one does not require a public hearing. In fact, I will make a motion. I will move that we approve the site plan design review requested by David Lewis IV, representing D.R. Horton, for Phase 2C of Western Acres located at 2000 North Copper Canyon Drive in the MR16 PUD zoning district.
I'll second.
Motion to approve and a motion to second by Commissioner Hamilton. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. Commissioner Hammer?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor, are you okay, John? We'll let it sip and then vote. Okay. How do you vote, Commissioner Proctor? Aye. Commissioner Sloan? Aye. Commissioner Hamilton? Aye. Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Chair also votes aye. That site plan design review is approved 7-0. Next, decision on the Canyon Springs preliminary subdivision plan request by Howard Schmidt to approve a new subdivision with 172 single-family residential lots located at approximately 705 Drew Bay Road. Mr. Page.
Yes. Planning Commission, the staff has reviewed this preliminary plat and find it in compliance with our code. The subject property is located off of Drew Bay Road, and it's adjacent to some county property to the south. And this is the current zoning has R18, and this is the overall plat, the preliminary plat. And then we have it broken down into, or the applicant has it broken down into 3 areas for greater detail. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to address those at this time.
Mr. Chairman, this is Andrew.
Oh, sorry, geez.
If I could continue on Kent's presentation here about this subdivision a little bit as it pertains to the annexation agreement. The annexation agreement has some specific requirements in regards to separation between the stormwater detention basins and Drew Bay Road. Kent, if you go back to the slide that shows the close-up image of that. Next slide. This one. So the way the annexation agreement reads is it just says there shall be sufficient separation. It doesn't necessarily specify what should be the means of separation. The applicant with this plan is proposing to pull the sidewalk back from the right-of-way. However, during the discussions for the annexation agreement, I recall the city council expressing some concerns about children using the site, having balls run out into the street, or roll out into the street, children running out to the street and so forth. The plans don't indicate any fencing or anything there to stop those types of things. So in your staff report, I recommended a condition for any kind of fencing or something that the applicant would be willing to put in there to try and prevent children from wandering out in the street if they're using these small spaces for open space. Because the annexation agreement really isn't clear on what the council wanted, I think it would definitely be within the Planning Commission's right as the land use authority to require fencing there if they felt it was necessary. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The applicant is here. I'm sure he'd be willing to discuss that with you as well. But
Thank you, Andrew. We'll go ahead and ask the applicant if he wants to discuss that by any means.
We have anticipated a fence along there, something along the line of just a 4-foot ball catcher that would, because we plan to landscape at least a larger detention pond with some green space in it for kids to play and so forth. We could probably do like a vinyl chain link fence along there. I don't love chain link. They have aluminum metal picket fence that I think looks pretty good. That's probably even a better choice that I would prefer. We'd be, if you want to put something like that into the recommendation, we'd certainly appreciate something like that. I think it'd be fine.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr.
Any other
Schmidt.
questions while I'm up here?
Doesn't look like it.
I'll come
Easy
back.
night.
I'll stay close.
Any other questions for the applicant while he's here? Okay.
She looks like she's dying to say something. No? Okay.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Do we need to decide what kind of fencing, or that's good enough? I don't know what a ball catcher fence is. Is that what you called it?
Just something to stop
Something.
balls from getting at kids getting out.
So more than a corral fence?
Probably what's around our parks that are up there. Elton Park has got a
Yeah,
small fence
That's
around
good
it.
enough. I'm fine.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve the preliminary subdivision plan request by Howard Schmidt for the purpose of creating 172 single-family residential lots located at approximately 750 Drew Bay Road, application number 202-4069, based on findings subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated February 20, 2025, to include an additional finding regarding, and Roger, you may have to walk me through the verbiage on this. I can visualize what Mr. Schmidt is saying. Fencing consistent with what we've done?
How about a short picket type fence?
Perfect. Does that work for you, Mr. Schmidt? I think, are you comfortable with 4 feet? Okay. If any but kid throws it higher than 4 feet out,
They're going to jump over it anyway.
yeah, they're not going to care.
Okay,
That'd be my motion.
there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Any discussion on that motion? If not, we'll take that to a vote. Commissioner Hammer?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Chair also votes aye. That is approved 7-0. Next on the agenda, are city council reports. Oh,
Chairman, could I just make sure that even though we've already had the motion and the vote, that I understand that the motion was for a picket type fence of no less than 4 feet in height? Okay.
No, but it's going to be a 4-foot-long thing.
Well, I heard you agree with what I said, but I didn't hear you say it yourself.
I
and just-
probably did not, and I apologize for that. And do I also need to, and maybe I should, well, definitely should have done this, to specify that we're only talking about the open
That one
space area, correct? That was my motion was,
That that this annexation agreement addresses.
correct.
okay. Councilmember Manzione, all you.
Hello. I don't really have a lot to report on from our last meeting. We sold some water for some more commercial development, and we made an annual summer swim pass. If anybody's interested in swimming at the pool this summer, you can get a pass. And then we had some discussion about some animal fences that may eventually come to you when it gets to that point. But that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions?
Someday there's going to be a question.
Sounds like a challenge.
Sounds like that day is
Yeah,
not
and then
today,
we'll
though.
have Councilman Hanson answer.
7 of them next time.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I listened to some of the animal fencing, but where did you leave it at? Because I heard like the not grandfathering in, but what do you?
I think there's going to be some more staff discussion before anything ever happens. Is that correct?
Sounds like it's going to be more than one
Yeah.
conversation. It's going to
Yeah,
take a minute
it's
to
going to
figure
take
that
a minute.
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I thought it was fascinating. It was a fun discussion to listen to because we drive all over town. We see all the different
Right.
fences. We just talked about a fence for a subdivision and saying no wood fences and then showing pallets made out of fences, and those are great. Some of them are great, some of them are not so
And
much.
some of them aren't.
But they have in common the material, so you can't just say no wood fences,
Right.
which is what, the target of the
But-
anti-pallets. It was a great conversation.
But we also have to decide if that really fixes the problem we're trying to fix, and
Yep.
not sure that it does, so,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks. Next, the review and decision on the minutes for the meeting held on February 12th, 2025. Any discussion on those minutes or changes that need to be made? If not, I will move that we approve those minutes for the meeting held on February 12th, 2025.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. Commissioner Hammer?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Chair also votes aye. Those minutes are approved 7-0. Next on the agenda, we have kind of something we don't do too often, but we want to talk about possible city code amendments. One of the things that can spur on changes in the city code is if discussions are held at the city council level, but also preliminary to that, we can hold discussions here about things that might concern us. Something came up at our last meeting about temporary or permanent structures for storage along Main Street in parking lots. and there's really nothing in the code about that. So we figured that was worth a few minutes to discuss as a planning commission and see if that's something that we can recommend as a body, or at least hold a public meeting, well, a meeting here for us to discuss it and see if it needs to move forward for the city council to take a look at it.
I think that it does. I think that we need that. And otherwise, we could have shipping containers along Main Street in a parking lot.
That would be my concern with the growth that we have. We have a bunch of building going on, some commercial shopping centers being built, and we want our city to look nice. When we have builders and developers come, we have a lot of requirements on what their building can look like and what it can be sided with and percentages and all kinds of things. And we take pride in what our city looks like, and I don't think we want a bunch of temporary pop-up, I don't know, storage units or connexes or sheds or anything in our parking lots. Like I said a couple weeks ago, parking lots are for parking cars and vehicles, not for storage, in my opinion. So I'm glad we're having this discussion.
One of the things I want to ask is if I can pick on you, Mr. Page and Mr. Agard, from your vast experiences in other municipalities, have you seen other cities with code referencing parking lots and what can be put in them and what can't be put in them?
When I was in Riverton, they allowed temporary accessory structures in parking lots for, specific sales or events and things of that nature. We prohibited in Riverton all permanent accessory structures in front of the commercial buildings. They're required to go on the sides or in the back of the sites. So that's how Riverton dealt with it. That's the only jurisdiction that I dealt with them. In Salt Lake County, we didn't regularly address these issues. But that's how Riverton handled them. I don't know if Kent has other insights from some of his jurisdictions, but.
I have a question about that before we.
That's fine, yeah.
What's defined as temporary and what is permanent? Because is permanent, I dig a basement in the parking lot, or is temporary mean I can tear it down at any time? Like, I guess I'm confused about what that means.
Well, that's a difficult question because, they come in and say, we're going to put this up, it's going to sit here for a year. That's not permanent. I think we would want to address that, and if we look at doing a code amendment, is what do you want to consider as temporary?
Okay, thank you.
3 months, 6 months? Do we want to have them, permanent, has to have a permanent foundation? I mean, those are things that we would have to discuss as part of this. Or just the code outrightly prohibits detached accessory structures in parking lots. But.
My experience has been the same as Andrew's, that some jurisdictions allow for temporary accessory dwellings, not dwellings, but structures in parking lots. Others prohibit them right out. In Saratoga, there is a consideration for having an accessory structure in the Walmart parking lot for drone deliveries. So that might be something that is coming into the future. So
I know there are some stores that already take advantage of just have temporary storage and connexes and shipping containers in their parking lot.
Yeah, seasonal fenced off areas that take up.
No code against it, so there's nothing we can do. But
There's some seasonal sales that are big in Tooele Cities, the 4th of July, and they all have a connex sitting there. So if you banned it, there would be, I'm sure they could figure out a way, but that's something that's why it would fall into the temporary for a month, because they don't pick it up after the 4th of July. It's
Right.
all of July they're there till after the 24th
I've got
usually.
a dog that would be thrilled with banning all of those.
Yeah.
And that's, being entirely transparent, the thing that spurred this on was that building last week where it was there and we were trying to figure out how it got there and then what, after the fact, we could do to make sure everything was safe in that parking lot. And so the temporary is part of it, but also, just like Commissioner Hammer mentioned, the aesthetics along the frontage, right? In the frontage of parking lots and commercial areas along Main Street. Even if they look nice, do we want them there? That's the question I think that probably is pertinent at this time.
I think there's a lot of nitty-gritty details in this, because the one you're talking about from the last meeting, I wasn't here, but I did read the packet still, and like, it's not in front of the building that's using it. So like, is it in front of the major retailer or that actual person? You know, there's a lot of nitty-gritty little details.
You're right, there is a whole lot to be worked through. And I guess this is just the first step, and hopefully something that city council can discuss future. It's just a discussion point, so obviously there's no action that we're gonna take tonight, but we've got 40% of the city council here, so hopefully you guys can at least decide how you want to address it, since you're the ones that make the big bucks.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yeah,
And
please.
this is probably a Roger question. I know that in the past, when the city has tried to work on some things, they've put a moratorium on going forward with any others. Is there any way we could do that with conditional use permits for accessory buildings and parking lots while we talk about this and work on it? Or does the city council have to do that? Do we, is that a
You could.
recommendation?
State law allows you to take up to 6 months to study a land use regulation that would preempt anything from being approved during that period. Once the 6 months are over, if nothing's been put in place, then it reverts back to what it was.
And do you do that in this kind of a meeting?
We
Or do
would
you
do
make a
that.
recommendation to city council?
Right, we would do that by ordinance that went to the city council, and they would enact a temporary zoning ordinance for up to 6 months. The permanent ordinance, whatever was wanted, would come back to you for recommendation and public hearing, but the temporary one would just be to the city council.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Roger, do you see any problems with if the city council decided to not approve any accessory buildings in parking lots? Would that's legal to do?
Well, I'm
Is
not
that a
sure.
loaded question?
We have existing zoning regulations that allow some accessory uses and some temporary uses. But if you want to prohibit something that isn't regulated, then you could certainly do that. I'd be concerned about using a temporary zoning ordinance to disallow something that's allowed. I think you could probably still do it, but
But that's something that, as the city council, if they feel that it's a valid concern, then they ask staff to kind of draft a
Right.
potential code or potential change, and then it gets worked through that way, correct?
correct.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to say from the commission?
Let me, if I can.
Commissioner Stone.
Well, as you mentioned, we have 40% of the council here. Do you feel like the pulse of 40% of you feels like this is something worth at least exploring and studying? We kind of, and it took me a couple of days to try and decide whether I was cranky about not having an ordinance or I was cranky about the position we were put in to approve something that none of us really liked. But we
That
had,
was already there.
but yeah, the cow was already out of the accessory outbuilding. But rather than put us through all that and put staff through all that, I guess I want to kind of take just the pulse of the two of you that here, you are our liaison to the council. And if we're spinning our wheels, we either need to decide we want to spin our wheels or not. But I think a big part of that decision for me would be if there's an appetite at the next pay grade to at least take a look at it.
Well, yeah, it makes me think of a lot of things when you're talking about it, because we have coffee shops that are temporary type places. They're just set on the property, and that's the sheds you're talking about. So I want to think about it. I just don't know what can of worms it opens further than just the storage shed.
Well, I know better than to try and screw with people's coffee, but
Right.
and I think that's what I'm getting at is
Drink
I think
shops and whatever,
we can,
you know.
I think staff can, and certainly Roger includes in that, can craft something with an understanding of what we're trying to get to.
Right.
And whether that's, I hate to bring up the word design standards, but I'm going to say design standards. But that would all have to be encompassing, because part of the issue that we had, besides the location of the one last week, was where it should have been in the first place if we'd had a crack at it.
Right.
And it would have looked exactly like the place it was designed to service. It wouldn't necessarily have been an eyesore. It may not have been everybody's cup of coffee, but
But it would have been in the right place.
yeah.
I think we need to do something.
Am I saying that
agree
right?
with you guys that we need to stir it up and see what we can come up with. Yeah, but we need to be careful with what else we cause by doing it.
Well, at least initiate
I've
the
been
discussion at your
around,
level.
yeah, I've been around causing lots of things by making a wrong decision before, so, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, good, that's all we need to say about that then, if it looks like it's going to move up, so excellent. With that being said,
Everything that you.
So it just moves on to city council for
Yeah.
them to figure,
Yep.
okay. Cool.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You kicked butt on that conversation.